Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for AMA number 34. I never seem to remember the number, but I believe it's 34. If you have any questions of your own, you can ask them on the YamatoCannon subreddit or on the Discord. Actually, not on the Discord, it's only on the subreddit. I do these videos every now and then. They're supposed to be weekly, but it depends on, what is going on. Currently, I'm quarantining myself in this room. You can hear that my voice is a bit different than usual. I've been sick for about a week. Don't worry, it's COVID. I'm fine. We just had like a cold, a little flu going through the team. And I think it hit me the worst because I was completely out of it for a couple of days. Nevertheless, I'm quarantining myself because I don't want to get my lovely girlfriend sick. So I'm just going to do some videos to keep myself busy. Let's jump into the damn questions. If you would like to join me in the humble process of petting the like button, I don't understand this whole purpose of smashing the like button. The like button is very gentle. My grandma can it's one button press, click, it's very, very gentle. There's no reason to smash it. It is good to press it for the sake of the algorithm. The more likes a video has, the more interaction. Could be dislikes too. YouTube just loves interaction. The more it will be shown to other people. They love it when people stay on the website and press things on the website. Ooh. Nevertheless, let's jump into the damn questions. First question, Not Jesper asks, what do you think about T1's 10-man roster? So this question can be viewed differently, right? Like, what do you think about the 10-man roster? They have 10 players that are fantastic. If that's the question, I doubt it. I'm sure you're wondering about, the execution of the process. The tricky thing is, as these players were signed and as the lineup was built, were the necessary guidelines flushed out? Pretty much, was the coaching staff's idea super pristine and clear from the get-go? Did the players know what they signed up for? Or are they just going along with it because of how the hierarchy works in Korea culturally? Because if everything is known along the way and players agree with it and, there is clear, guidelines as to how the players need to act to proceed the goals of the team and proceed their own goals, then maybe it could work. But when things start to go wrong and you do changes and everything is unclear and you don't have the manpower to make sure that the players that are not playing are actively improving and they know what they need to achieve in order to play, then I think it's going to always be a very, very difficult situation. When I joined Sandbox, they did something similar in spring where they tried to just piece together the roster. They were swapping players left and right, and this is not something that built confidence. It's not something that, it was so reactionary, and the thought process behind it was not something that the players could align with or understand. We've had moments in time where rosters have used substitutes, like SKT with Koma was, of course, the best example of that when they had Easy Hoon or when they had Blank. They had that sixth man and they made sure to use that sixth man. And with this in mind, there is a way to do it as long as everyone understands their function in that group and how they're supposed to progress and reach their goals in that environment. It's just very difficult to do with a 10-man roster. What I did when I joined Sandbox was I chose very early which 5 I want to work together, because first of all, our time was very limited. I joined, of course, I joined in summer, and our time was very limited, and I knew that trust was already, the trust between them as players and the trust within the team was very, very broken from the spring of just changing player after game after game. Just, you did something wrong, here you change, you did something wrong, you change, just using it as a point of pressure. I don't agree with, It's like, oh, play good, that's not enough for players to function in an environment with, you know, an expanded roster. It's just something that requires a lot of deliberate calculation, something that requires a lot of manpower, honestly. You know, you need to have people that work with the players that aren't in the active roster always, you know, so there is a clear path to that success. That's super, super important. And it seems from outside that this is not working, not only because of gameplay, because I think gameplay is not enough to judge it, but based off of the interviews that you can read from T1, that it's not landing as they would want it to land, right? You see that, you know, some of the players are stressed out, and that's not the environment you want to be in. And back to what I did with Sandboxes, I made that commitment to the 5 players. I told them, I commit to you, I want you guys to commit to me, you know? And that goes a long way, you know, that's a good way of building trust. Knowing that, you know, I give them, you know, my trust, because that's what it is, trust. There's nothing behind you, pressing you, because that kind of pressure can be useful for some, but can be very hurtful for others, and can create an environment that isn't necessarily healthy. It can work, you know, for some people, but rarely for everyone. And I think that's where you have to, you know, kind of draw the line. And, to look at T1 and their results now, of course, it's not something that you're happy with. From outside, you know, I am a fan of Faker. I think it's impossible not to be if you are in love with the game. And the less Faker plays, the worse League of Legends is off in general, because Faker is one of a kind, and we're not going to see players like that often, you know, not at all. He's going to be a historical figure in esports for a very, very long time. And, to not see him play, I think it robs League of Legends of something that the community needs but doesn't deserve. Nah, the League of Legends community is alright, it's not that bad. But yeah, I had many players on Sandbox, but I commit to 5, and it went a long way. You know, it went a long way. The conversation of so-called synergy, you know, people talk about synergy and building that, you know. Of course, if you have 5 good players and they're operating at the same level, then, you know, that's fantastic. But that's very rare, you know. Often you have players that are better at other things, and the other players are better at other things. And that synergy is pretty much finding out clever ways to bridge the gap, you know, bridge the gap between that through either communication, through trial and repetition. That's to me what synergy is, right? Making sure that the team as a whole operates on the same level of thinking, right? Like imagine for example, Hilly, right? Hilly, his understanding of engages is here, and then maybe the rest is maybe here. And with that in mind, you know, in order to elevate everyone to the point of where Hilly is, that's where synergy comes into place. In an ideal world, everyone operates here. Then there's no necessity for that synergy, but that's just how I view it. And I think this is something that, you know, you need to build up, because very rarely you run into a team where 5 players are equally good. Very rare. But yeah, I think I've talked enough on this topic. And just as a final note, the reason I think the guidelines need to be in place, the goal setting needs to be in place, the path to success needs to be clear for the players. That's also important, because otherwise, like, you don't know what you're really doing, and that can be very frustrating for anyone, you know. I think in any work, in any like thing that you put effort and time into, you want to see progress, right? You want to see some pathway to forward. And if your players are thinking the pathway forward for me is in a different team, you've failed. Norn identity. What would you say is the most important quality you look for when choosing a lineup? Also, who makes you laugh the most on Fnatic? I've said this since 2015. You know, the lineup that I want to build is always one that has the potential to win it all. The potential to win it all, I think, comes from, you know, players that pursue perfection, players that really have the motivation and the aspiration to go big. In the past, often in the LEC and in LCS, a lot of players were recycled, often the players that got beat over and over again by the top end of the heap. And, you know, there's definitely some veterans, like some of the old school players that belong. Like a good example was, you know, Vitality. Like the Vitality roster was made with the idea of trying to challenge the top, and the way we pursued something in game was with, you know, the way we played the game was also with the intention of trying to beat the top. And we beat Fnatic, you know, the 2018 Fnatic a couple of times. We lost against them in best of fives, but we did indeed, you know, push them occasionally, you know, and this was the identity we were pushing for. I wouldn't settle. Look, I could have approached that off-season in a way where I got a lot of known names that, you know, managed to land in other teams, and we would have, you know, made playoffs and whatever, but I want to be able to believe in the idea that this player could potentially, you know, beat everyone else out. And that comes with risk, you know, it comes with flops, but I'd rather take a risk to reach the top than not take a risk and just reach playoff and die gracefully. I just don't believe in that. I think every team in the league has a responsibility to try to challenge that. And now I'm a part of Fnatic, and you know, I have access to, you know, fantastic names and fantastic players, and we're going to be the ones to do our best to challenge G2. Rogue is on the up and up since last year. Mad Lions too. You know, there are definitely, you know, when you look at Rogue and Mad, you know, they weren't recycling old names. They have maybe a couple, you know, they have, of course, an oyou and so forth, but they brought in Trimby, who's, you know, an up-and-coming rookie. Inspired is also, you know, he's been around the block, but, you know, they were actively progressing. And just to round off the question, you know, this is the quality that I look for, you know, the thing that, you know, first and foremost, that pursuit for perfection, the way they move their mouse, how they move their camera, I think is a good way. Their character, their motivations, their aspirations, you know, I think it goes a very, very long way in how I choose my lineup. You know, when I interacted with Jizuki for the first time, his story spoke to me, because the man legit ran away from home to play League, and he was competing, and that in itself, you know, someone putting his heart and soul into something, this is, you know, something else. And me and Jizuki, we did fantastic things together. I don't care about what you think about, you know, his play in North America. It's just that I know what a player like Jizuki needs, and that the relationship was, you know, something I will cherish forever. Kled and Skarl, how did G2 change with Rekkles and gameplay perspective? I don't think too much. I think Rekkles is a very plug-and-play player. Like a very strong one, of course. He's a strong player, a very plug-and-play. I don't think he's, you know, enforcing some kind of play style on anyone. I think G2 changed after losing to Damwon. What I noticed about G2 is that after losing to FPX, that year was heavily focused on 2v2 mid and 3v3 mid and how they approached that. And then this year, after losing to Damwon, it seems like they have definitely tried to elevate the idea of precision, pretty much, you know, when they have game-winning states, to not take any unnecessary risk and clean up their gameplay. So it feels like they always get inspired by the things they lack when they get beat at the World Championship, which is, you know, a good way, but I don't think this is necessarily tied to Rekkles. HS Quickie asks, what is your favorite chess piece? My favorite chess piece is the Queen, I guess. Yeah, the Queen. I like bishops too. What a weird question, man. That's fucking... I don't know what piece I like. Have you ever experienced or perhaps heard about corruption, match fixing in the league esports scene? Yeah, you get news about that all the time. I haven't seen it in you know, it was a big problem in the old days. There was a lot of DDoSing going on, which was like a way of match fixing. You know, it was very, very easy to manipulate the results in the past. So, but it's just one of those things that is very, very difficult to prove unless like you're literally stupid, you know? For those who ask, what is your favorite team to watch outside of Europe? I like watching RNG and Damwon, EDG, FPX, and that would be my four. I also just like watching Sandbox, of course, but they're not doing so well, but I'm hoping that they can bounce back a bit and get some wins on the board. They just beat Genji, so that's pretty cool. Rarain, how would you compare coaching the players on Fnatic to coaching players on your previous teams? I think so far, you know, at least in my recent memory, you know, Hilly and Bippo are teaching me a lot of things. They're like about, you know, how they are perceiving the game, how they find opportunities, and that's very unique. You know, I haven't experienced this in a long time. And Hilly and Bippo are very unique players, but they are very, very intelligent, very, very flushed out thought process, and having conversations with that is very nutritious and intriguing, and I appreciate that super much. Fusfine asks, what do you think are the biggest differences between European and Korean players' work ethic? Well, it's weird to say European because European culture is very different. You know, I don't see myself as a European. You know, I was born and raised in Sweden with a Palestinian father and a Polish mother. I don't see myself as European. Someone that grew up in Spain or Portugal or France or, you know, Germany, I doubt they see themselves as European. So that's something that it's important to outline because culturally it's so different all over Europe. And that is one of the tricky things with coaching in Europe and working with teams in Europe is that culturally everyone's so different, right? In Korea, the culture, of course, there are regions and so forth, but culturally things function very similarly. And the big difference is, I think, this idea of hard work, this idea of, you know, hierarchy that is very, very evident. You know, the idea of how you're going to become a successful pro player and what you're putting on the line, I think that is the big difference. Because if you don't succeed after making such a choice, the repercussions are very severe in Korea. And this is my impression. So this is, you know, if someone tells me it's otherwise, that's okay. It's just my impression from what I've perceived and what I've watched. So I'm not saying that this is factual at all. It's just that the repercussions for failure are way more extreme, and the path to how to become a successful pro player is way more outlined. So Korean players, you know, I never ever needed to push them to play more solo queue, put in more hours. You know, that's just not what I needed to do in Sandbox. You know, the environment was very contagious in the sense that you know, it was very easy to work hard in that environment because everyone did. So that's pretty cool. It's a big advantage, and it's funny, you know, in this conversation of, you know, lifting the import rules. I think it's such a bullshit take that this is going to save the region, because we've seen multiple times some of the best players go to North America and play much worse. What North America needs are examples. You know, they need the top heap to lead by example. Core JJ has done more for North America than most owners. Core JJ pushed to play a lot of, you know, freaking, what are they called? In-houses with a bunch of players that were coming up in the ladder, and players that I've never heard of, and he's actively trying to better himself, and through that is a leader, in that. I think culturally, North America in League of Legends is lagging behind. And I think that comes from the players, from the ownership, from the solo queue environment. The key thing is that solo queue in North America, if you look at the solo queue issue, ping is a massive problem for sure. I don't know if there's a possibility to just make Challenger and above, and that's the server. Like Challenger and above games are from a Californian server or something like this. That could be a solution. And the key thing is that North American solo queue, even if the ping was good, it has lost credibility. And I think there are ways to artificially bring that credibility back. Whether you make, a prize money, you put a lot of emphasis on, top laddered players gets X and X, or something. You just have to restore credibility somehow. Who cares if you have to spend money on it? Maybe the organization can come together, and all of the pro players need to also lead by example. But it's very tough to fix a culture. Cultural problem is very, very difficult, and it's easier said than done. I'm not saying that I have some magical wand that would solve this issue, but I think it starts with the players, with the coaching, and then leading by example. You need just more people like Coach JJ, but he's a diamond, right? He's just a gem, this man. The reason I think the whole idea of thinking that lifting import rules is going to solve it all is because of the example I raised above, right? There's been a lot of imports that have been great in other countries, and then they come into Europe and play a lot worse. I mean, come to North America and play a lot worse. That has occurred. And there are many examples. If this argument was true, right, China would dominate every single world championship, right? Their population is way bigger than everything else, and they have the funds to take some of the strongest Korean players to have ever graced the game, right? Many world champions are just going to China to cash out and to continue playing, right? That has occurred many, many times. A lot of the greatest players in China happen to be also Korean. You think of the Shy, you think of Rookie, you think of Doinbi, right? There are fantastic Chinese players too, don't get me wrong. That's not the purpose of this. They have such a large player base, so they have great mechanical players. But if we go by this metric, 70 million people that are playing actively ranked was the last statistic that I wrote, and they should be cracking everybody's head, right? They should be cracking everyone's heads, but they aren't. Because Korea, culturally, are just really, really insane. It's like there are many examples of outliers. Many examples of outliers in history where a population that isn't necessarily, like large or anything, and they dominate a specific field. I don't know. I don't have any great examples right off the bat, but I'm sure there are many examples in many sports of this is a region that produces super athletes in this sport. This is a region that produces super athletes in this sport. Maybe Dagestan and wrestlers and MMA fighters. The amount of them they are producing, or maybe a certain school is producing very many Nobel Prize takers. I'm sure if I prepared something for this statement, I could find outliers in history where population isn't everything, number isn't everything. It's all about, the environment, the culture, the things that they are doing in order to achieve perfection. And I think that's what's important. I don't think number of people is going to, you know, magically solve North America. But that's enough about, you know, cultural differences between Europe and Korea and North America. Let's move on to the next question. Unicorns of Fire asks, how are you? I'm sick. I'm fine, thank you. Chimnut2703 asks, favorite thing of coaching Fnatic? I genuinely have a lot of fun. And that's important to me. Having fun, being excited to go to work, feeling love for the people that you work with, I think is very important and very underrated. I genuinely love my players and my staff, and that goes a long way. And, I've been blessed with working with wonderful people, and I appreciate this on a daily basis. Drawing motivation from others is something that goes such a long way. Carter's Abuser 69, who's the most undervalued player of all time in your opinion? Probably Rookie. I would say Rookie. I think too few people hold him in the regard of being the best mid laner to ever grace the game, and I think he should be in that discussion for sure. Paris G, do you think there will be a huge gap between EU and China Korea again this year coming into Worlds? Stories of every Western team getting smashed for first 2 weeks in scrims. Do you think it will be better this time around? I don't think it will be any different, because I don't see what is different. Why would it be different? I don't see it right now, and I don't know how practice is going to work for MSI. Really no clue. Do you scrim European server in Iceland? What's the ping like? I have no clue what's going to happen. It's going to be quite odd. MSI is also a strange event to prepare for. It's easier if it's in an Asian region because you can scrim against the teams there. I have no clue how that's going to go down. World Championship as well with the quarantine or with the COVID. I don't know what's going to go down. It's too many variables that make it very tricky to answer. So I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I don't know if this time is going to be any different. I think it's just based off of team to team. You know, in Vitality, I went to Worlds twice, right? With Splice, we got annihilated. With Vitality, we were always kind of losing scrims. Our scrim ratio was very, very low, but we took what we needed from scrims, right? And that's what's important, taking what you need from scrims. And I think losing scrims can be very nutritious, and saying that, you know, you just have to win scrims can also go a long way, but I think there's some, you know, and it's not clear cut on how it should be or shouldn't be. Obviously, if you get your shit kicked in, like when we scrimmed IG, we got our shit kicked in. That wasn't, you know, that was just you know, you just, holy shit. This is reality. We just got our shit kicked in, right? That's not where you want to be. I'm realizing now that I'm beginning to talk more and more shit. I'm talking for 35 minutes now. The fever's kicking in. Definitely the fever's kicking in. Exorcist, do you think Vitality has what it takes to become one of the top teams by summer split? According to a lot of people, they were smashing scrims before split started, but then fell off a cliff and still are yet to recover. Well, we lost against them, but that was just stupidity. I don't know. It's weird. Now, I'm in Fnatic, right? And I have a hard time giving a shit about any of these teams. So I just don't really have an opinion, you know? It's I know that they are not going to be a threat to what we want to achieve, so it's hard for me to care. And if they are starting to become a threat to what we want to achieve, then I will notice, because it's very obvious. And currently, I don't feel like that, even though we lost against them. Anyhow, I think we leave that as the last question. Thank you so much for watching this AMA and me going on random tangents. I appreciate you. If you sneeze during this video, please bless you and bless your face. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Please leave a like and a comment below. It goes a long way to support the channel. Thank you.